In the flavor of Seinfeld, here's a podcast about nothing.
A podcast about nothing, which is usually our first 10 minutes anyway. Welcome aboard. Today's January 21st, the year 2021. This is a Crushing Iron podcast, episode 445.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I've gotten that right, which is awesome. We did our podcast, what feels like yesterday, but it was 2 days ago, and I feel like I'm on a roll. I feel like I'm in the zone, which I wasn't when we produced the other one 2 days ago, but we rallied hard, and we had a lot of good feedback from that one, honestly. That was like one of those ones where I feel like it was, generally speaking, like the worst podcast I've ever done in my entire life, and I got like 4 emails. It was like, that one really hit home for me. I could, like, you really, well, they didn't say the first 20 minutes was great. They were like, once you got to the swim part, that really resonated with me. It got me fired up, and I made some adjustments, and I saw some immediate results. I was peeking through our shared Training Peaks log and came across Heather Butler's Training Peaks comment from Wednesday, and she sounds like she had like an aha moment about extending her obliques and reaching farther and faster.
Yes, she did.
Had some awesome time. So that's always good. You know, it's good to hear that even though if I can struggle through the first 15 or 20, then I can rally, and you guys can still get some benefit from it. So that is always, it makes me happy. It makes my heart warm.
It's interesting how that can happen in life, right? You think you've done something that's like mediocre at best, but it depends where everyone else is, like where someone that interprets it is at, right? It might just resonate perfectly, but sometimes you think you come out firing, and people just aren't in the mood for you.
I know, like today, I'm firing all cylinders, and this will be like definitely one of the ones that are like, yeah, you really didn't get me. You really didn't hit home with me today.
Nothing there today.
Nothing there. You guys swing and missed, which is fine. But hey, welcome aboard. We appreciate you tuning in. If it's your first time listening, welcome. We have 444 other podcasts in the archives. You can go back and download and listen to. You can pick and choose which ones you like, which ones might have titles that I think you need questions answered to immediately. Mike does an awesome job of going through and kind of outlining what we go through step by step through the entire podcast. So listen to those, go back, catch them up. We have some great ones. We have some terrible ones, and we have, 85% of them are just mediocre at best, which is kind of like life. We just kind of like to hang around in the middle and do most of the things consistent. But I was thinking about that this morning, honestly, because I was kind of giving myself a hard time again about the podcast the other day. And I did. I wasn't flogging myself. I was like, man, but I was like, if you do, like we've been doing this podcast for, we're entering our 5th year here in a minute. It's like, we've done this a lot. And so we are 100% destined. Like, we are going to have horrific podcasts where people are like, that sucked. And you know what? I'm okay with that, because if you do this enough, you're going to have it's just like working out. Like I used this analogy yesterday on our weekly team Zoom call. That was like, I was kind of giving my hard time about the podcast the other day, and then they all reminded me, they're like, Coach, like, we don't listen to the first 10 minutes anyway, because you guys talked about sports for like 3 years, so we all just kind of, and even though those are barely happening, I was like, we just skipped through it. So if you went a total zero terribly, wouldn't have known. But I was like, that's kind of how podcasts are. Like, just like training, you think it's going to go great, and then you and I go back and we're like, hey, notification, you have 7 1-star reviews for today. And you're like, I thought we crushed this one. And then you go out and you think, you know what? I feel like those are the worst cast ever. And then I was like, you have 14 5-star reviews. And that's just kind of how life works. One day you think you got it, one day you think you don't. You just got to roll with it. And as long as you're consistent, you're going to have really great days, and you're going to have also really, really terrible days, just like with everything else in life. So you bounce back, you get back inside it, put your headset on, you walk up to the mic, and here we are.
It's like a normal conversation. You can't come into it with just like, fire blazing, and it usually sort of warms up, and then by the end, you're sitting around the coffee shop or something, and you're talking to somebody you haven't seen in a while, and then all of a sudden, 20, 30 minutes in, you're like really hitting some good points.
That's true. You don't just like, hey, man, coffee, and you sit and you're like, all right, let's get into the deep stuff.
Go deep. No.
You have to. You do. You kind of have to warm up.
We
You got to get lathered up.
Though.
We shouldn't. I'm afraid.
Well, we
that
should
would be
warm up
awkward. Off air?
Off mic, and then come in hot.
Off mic. I don't know about that.
I think people listening need to warm up too sometimes.
Yeah, that could be. Who knows? But again, if you're first time listening, we cover a lot of triathlon. We cover a lot of life. We cover all things in between. We'll do specific swim, bike, and run podcasts. We'll do podcasts that go deep on training philosophy and how you should be approaching your own training, whether you're coached or self-coached or going off a training plan. We'll sometimes have a guest on. We'll do race recaps, race previews. Oftentimes, we'll even hop into our group, which is on Facebook. You can go in there if you're not a part of it. A lot of awesome people in there. You can search Crushing Iron Group, answer one simple question. We'll let you in. And again, we do have a lot of really awesome people in there with a lot of experience, willing to chip in and answer some of your questions, especially if you're new to the sport or even if you're a seasoned veteran, there's literally like there is, and those, I'm like interrupting my intro every single time as I get distracted. Maybe that'll be our topic today. No, just by like my thoughts and like what we talked about yesterday in the Zoom. I'm just innocent bystander.
Maybe it's
in
my
this
white
chaos.
socks.
No, it's the fact that you're wearing Hokas during a podcast. But that's showing your age. It's like those are like the gray New Balances, like the bright white New Balances. You see people rocking, you're like, that's the old dude. He's going for a mall walk. Hokas are like now like the bright white New Balances. They're like, oh, you're dressed up to go out today with your pleated khaki shorts and your polo tucked in. You're like, you're going somewhere. You going golfing? Like, nah, I'm going down to Ace Hardware. And then you get all dressed up and you got your Sunday best on just to go to like freaking Ace Hardware.
These are like my nursing shoes. I feel like I'm going to go out and treat somebody.
My God. But we covered all, Mike and I, as you have already noticed. Just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about where we are with our own training, where our athletes are. Sometimes we'll take topics from our Facebook group and even do podcasts just generally straight from the questions that they ask. That's all we do. We open honest discussion, no sponsors, no ads, one agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy and enjoying this endurance sports journey.
Mm-hmm. Which I am personally enjoying right now.
I'm going to say, you're kind of on a roll.
Yeah, I am. And, but like I was telling you earlier,
how many days have you been on the treadmill?
I think it's 11.
It's 11 now?
11 straight. And, but I've really, really reined it in. It's just like I've found a sweet love for those 20-minute treadmill runs, It's just an undying love that I'm finding between me and that treadmill and my Hokas. It feels good, and like, I have genuinely got to the point where 20 minutes feels like almost nothing, but it is very rewarding at the same time. So it's like when I have 20 minutes, I just kind of go for it.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Because I was wondering this about myself this morning, and you've been on, you were, it's interesting. Like you and I always, we're never really
we inspire each other
at the same time. You're so full of shit. We've never really been in sync at the same time. Like either I'm in like a real big zone and you're not, or you're in a big zone and I'm not. And I have been like, I was in probably the best zone of my entire life leading up to what I was hoping was going to be Texas 70.3. And then after that, I've kind of been waffling. I've just kind of waffled in between. Like I've really wanted to get like to have the motivation and the commitment and I don't even think it's those words, the desire to just get up and do the work and figure exactly what it is I want out of not just the year, but want out of myself in terms of where I can picture myself going through the year, not just this year, but next year. And I just haven't really gotten my act together, to be honest with you. And then for whatever reason, after like Monday night, I was kind of like, I feel like it clicked. And I didn't do anything Monday besides hang out with Hayden and do a bunch of things and just and maybe that is it. I just kind of found like a new level of happiness. I was like, I'm just really happy right now. But I mean, it's only been 3 days, but I've been kind of on a roll. I got in the pool, I got back on the bike. I run every day. And I was just kind of like, it just clicked and I have no idea why, or nothing like dramatic happened. That I didn't watch like some inspirational speech. I didn't watch some like, NBC classic Ironman, video from like 3 years ago. It's like, that's me. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go out and I'm going to rip it. It just kind of it just all maybe made sense. If that makes any sense at all. You've been the same way. You were kind of struggling, with your plantar fasciitis to kind of, and I think it's a great topic, for both of us, because we're, I think, obviously going through right now, but I think for athletes too, like this time of year, everyone feels kind of pressured, I think, into being in a zone because like, oh, it's a new year. Like I should be in the zone. Everything's changing. No, everything's not changing, right? It's like nothing, like very little has changed, honestly. And I've had even athletes reach out and be like, everyone's like super pumped to be like, new year, new me, it's the brighter and sunshiny future. But frankly, my life is still really rough right now. And I'm having a hard time. And I think it's difficult. I think people feel guilty, to be honest with you, not being super jazzed up and in the zone right now and crushing their workouts, or because like, oh, everyone else is doing this. First of all, no, they're not. Okay. You might see that and read into that by what they post on social media, but social media is not real life. People are still struggling. No, not everyone is consistent. Not everyone is clicking off everything. Not everyone's losing 5 pounds a week. That's not how it works. And so I think it's probably a good time for that topic. We kind of enter into February where most people kind of fall off their New Year's resolutions, if that's the kind of thing that you do. But it's how things click and why. And then like I was saying, like you were kind of bobbing and weaving through, trying to be motivated, and then your heel would bother you, and then all of a sudden, it seems like the last like 3 weeks, you've just been like in the zone. Like our roles switched. I'd walk in and I'd look over to the right, and I'm like, he swam last night, because we for like 4 months here, it's like you'd walk in and be like,
the remnants.
It was like
there's water bottle.
It's like, because like I cover the early mornings, you cover the late nights, and you'd walk in, and you'd be like, God, he's on his bike again. He's making me feel guilty. Like you're just sticking it to me. It was like, I could tell it's frustrating you.
My little belly's poking
in
out
the
and walking by you going, hey, buddy. You're just like
going to town.
Barely
baby.
got enough energy to look up at.
And I'm like, yeah, I got it. I'll give you the head nod. I'm like, yeah, I'm still here. I'm in the zone. And then the last like 3 or 4 weeks, I come in. I'm like, I see a water ball out. Yep, he's been back on the watt bike. Yep, I see a pool. I see water on the concrete floor. Yep, he's been in the pool. I see another towel on the treadmill. I'm like, my God, he is in the zone right now. Like, what happened? Was it you being healthy? Because I think they kind of happen. One doesn't lead to the other one, obviously. But what do you feel like? And if you can't put a finger on it, I think that's also a good answer. What do you feel like got you to where you are now, which is in like, especially for this time of year, which is not your time of year. As long as I've ever known you, this is the opposite of what you've ever been this time of year. What do you feel like has led to this zone that you feel like that you are in right now?
I think it's a few things. For one, obviously you talked about, but last year in general was difficult to me, and I don't, with the whole calendar thing or whatever, but there is sort of markers where, you kind of identify with 2020 or whatever, and that was just a difficult space for whatever reason. And you talked about social media is fake or it's not real life, and I got out of I was watching a lot of Netflix at some point last year, and I got out of that, and then I was kind of into YouTube, and then I realized, man, that's not real life either. You kind of start doing that. So at some point, right after Christmas, I decided that the only way for me to engage, or the best way for me to engage in life, is to turn inward. And I made a conscious decision to turn inward. And what happened next was like, okay, I'm going to start slow. I'm going to go back into this. And then, so I started with the easy stuff and just kind of getting the rhythm and figuring out, and I started finding a good, combination of listening to music and running at a pace on a treadmill that was it just sort of felt good to me. And then what happened after about a week and a half, and this is so interesting about how you can kind of turn things around, I think, is that about a week and a half into that, I think what happened was I started feeling better, and then that started driving things. So then when I would look at whatever was going on, I would start making these conscious decisions to be like, is that going to make me feel better? Or is that going to make me feel worse? Because it's so easy to go into a trap of short-term gain, whether that be from, eating more chips or grabbing the, chocolate bars or whatever. Mm-hmm. And we've kind of joked, somebody sent us these Buckeye treats, and we've been actually unbelievable with those. They've been kind of just sitting there.
They're still here. We got them, and listen, it's not. It's terrible. I can't remember who even sent them to us, but it was one of our athletes in Ohio. We still have them. I think it was Dean Hart actually.
Yeah, there's a few left.
We've had them since Christmas.
Yeah,
and if it's not because we don't love them, we don't want them, but I feel like it has shown it is the best display of restraint and that we can and patience that we can possibly
restraint
show.
And I think that you forget about it. That's to me is the beauty of it, is when you start forgetting you have candy bars.
You did cover them up with 2 shirts.
That's true. I mean, out of sight, out of mind is a really big thing. That's been one of my philosophies in life, actually. I just don't, a lot of people will go to the store and they'll buy family packs of candy bars or something like that. I get cravings like everybody else, but I force myself to have to get up and, if I really want it, go to the store and get one.
The one off.
I only buy one. And, that's just so weird. But it is kind of that out of sight, out of mind thing. And so anyway, I don't know if that answers your question, but I feel like they're both working together. This concept of turning inward and really trying to do something good for myself, and in perfect alignment I am feeling better. So it's kind of registering in that way where it's like reinforcing either side of that.
I think when you kind of get in a zone like that, and I don't think there's like a direct answer for all that. And I think a lot of times we want that to happen. It's like, oh, I need a sign, and sometimes it's never going to be that easy. It's not like you're going to have it like spelled out in front of you. It's like this, ultimate awareness or this like very huge moment. That's like, now it all makes sense. Now the stars are aligning. Sometimes you don't even know like the why, the when or the why, but for you, it sounds like, I think this is true for a lot of people, is something in your life finally had to feel comfortable. Like you were confident and comfortable in your decision-making with what you were, subjecting yourself to via, YouTube or social media or what you were eating. And it was like, I kind of feel like I've got that part of my life. I'm comfortable with it. Like I feel happy. I mean, not necessarily in control, because I think control is an illusion, but you feel happy with how you're navigating that part of your life. And it's like, and when you feel comfortable with that, then I think that it allows you to do better at the other areas of your life. And if that shifts, you can at least be in control and comfortable with something. And I think that is also something that people are really struggling with and have the last year, is that they feel they can't be comfortable, period. They have a high level of anxiety. They are often more often depressed than normal. They feel like they're having to be sedentary. There's so much, uneasiness and unpredictability, and we don't know what's happening with races. And it's really put athletes especially when athletes that are driven and motivated and inspired by concrete dates on the calendar to get them to it. Because I'll have to be honest with you, there are a lot of athletes who I don't even think care about actually racing the race. They just like to have the bullseye out there. And that's what gets them to be in a zone, to stay accountable and get the work done every single day. And now that's been kind of taken away. And I feel like it's even though it's been proven, obviously we don't have control over that. I think the illusion that we've lived on that for years and for decades, right? It has put people in these good positions of being consistent and getting work done, which has allowed them to then again feel like they have some control and some comfort in their life. Then you have other athletes who that was like their saving grace through quarantine or pandemic, or whatever you want to call it. It's like, I had to have something, to do today. But then at some parts, like it's totally normal for your, not maybe your life unraveling is a little bit too dramatic, but when there are too many things going on in your life, I think, to where you feel like you can't really get a hold on any of them, you're kind of just grasping at straws, you're swinging at a piñata, whatever you want to call it. You kind of just feel like you can't really do anything really well. And so you feel like defeated when you try to do a workout, and you're like, because I've done this myself, and I think you have as well. It's like, you're like, I plan out my week. This week, I'm going to do it. I'm going to commit to it. And then you get a few days in the week, and then something happens and you miss a workout, and then you get just kind of discouraged and frustrated. You're like, why can't you just figure this out? Especially if you've just done it, or you've done it in the past. Like when you've been in a zone, you're capable of doing things, week in and week out. And yes, there are certain things that, happen in life that dictate lifestyle changes or volume changes to your training that you can't do the same. It's like, you kind of feel kind of lost, kind of in the moment. You're like, right. Why can't I figure this out? I've been there before. I know the roadmap. Why is it taking me longer to get there? And I think, a lot of times, like you said, like you always have to have some kind of positive force or, part of your life that's going really, really well to kind of, because it can seep through to those other areas of life that maybe suck, right? Or aren't that great, that you feel like you're totally erratic or chaotic, because then they can kind of just float. They can help get those to rise back to the top to where there's something that you really enjoy. And then you're like, I can do better at this. Like, one positive thing in your life, oftentimes can bleed into the other ones and make them better parts. Same thing though goes with things that are really, really, really negative in your life. And I think that's another part of what's been, I think, frustrating to watch the last year, is like how so many people and even athletes are like letting, complaining and just the general anxiety of like seeping to every part of their life that it really doesn't have to, but it pollutes it. Right. And I think that's a part of training and kind of getting into a zone that's like, once you kind of finally get like that ball rolling, you kind of get, the inertia of it going, you're like, you kind of get that, like, you go from, I can't get this started, to nothing can stop me. It's like, it's almost overnight. It's not like you're creating this like, huge dramatic training effect overnight in 2 days. But once you get into it, you go from finding every excuse possible, known to man. Listen to me. I got too much work to do. Too much work. I got to do work, to I'm finding a way today. I've got plenty of work, but I can find a way to do today. And it's like an immediate shift. And again, you go from, I got a million excuses to, I have a million reasons why I'm going to make this happen today, no matter what. And I just think it's all psychological, but I think you do, like you said, a lot of the, it has to be almost like a mental and emotional and physical kind of click at once, or one has to go really well to kind of let the other two rise to the top and kind of, run away with it or be supported by the other one.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And make no mistake, like what you said about races and having something out there, even if it's not the real reason, but it's something that motivates you, is a big deal. Because I am signed up for Ironman Chattanooga, and the reality is that while I'm in a zone, and we can talk about joke around with crushing it or whatever, but I'm in a zone, but that zone is absolutely 1 or 2, out of the 4 zones. It's not like. And I've been thinking about, we had this conversation this morning about my hamstrings and how that was sort of one of my biggest objectives right now, and how feeling good is the real bottom, or the bottom is the real, like the biggest piece for me is like, I've always talked about that. Like, I just want to feel my best at the race day. I want to feel good tomorrow. I want to feel good going into this. And what I've been doing is absolutely feeling good. And when, like lately, a lot of, like I'm taking care of a lot of athletes in the club and working with a lot of them and commenting and taking on more athletes on a custom weekly basis, which has been awesome. And I'm really into that. So if you have questions about that, hit me up. But, I've been seeing a lot of that felt really great. And like my response to that lately has always been, make that your goal every single day, because you're going to have hard workouts that can feel great, but if you haven't, you just want to, I'll say it a million times, you just want to end today with that little bit of like, flavor of wanting to go again tomorrow, like stop short, as Frank Costanza would say, stop short. And
it's my favorite episodes.
I know. And keep that desire going, like before you even start. I just think that that's like a mental secret that I feel like I have right now. Like you can just see, like, I wake up today and I'm not a morning guy. My goal in the long term is to start pulling these treadmill runs a little earlier in the day. And for me, that might mean like 1, that might be a huge win. But cause I'm not ready to go in the morning, but I can see how that could happen. And
I mean, the last 3 weeks, I leave here around 4 every day.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you work out once.
No, I haven't.
So we're going straight off, total trust here. You're the Night Stalker, man. Like,
running into the dark.
I'm like, I'm leaving. I'm like, he's probably not doing that he doesn't want to rub it in. Like, he doesn't want to stick it to me. No, I think what you said is great. And I think it is understated and how we need to reinforce feeling well and doing well and being well in our life as a whole. I think we forget sometimes the negative effects that anything and everything can have on us if we choose to allow it to happen. If we are surrounding ourselves by really poor people that are bad for us, that are just bad influences, that are, complaining, that are just generally negative, like, you become that person, right? Even if you don't recognize it, you become that. And you don't recognize it because you become so comfortable with it, it becomes who you are. It's kind of like this. It's kind of like a person who like really slowly loses weight. They don't really see the change because it happens so slowly. But
Right.
if you don't see somebody for 2 or 3 months and you walk up and they're like, you look pretty good. You lost about a weight. And you're like, yeah, I think so. And they're like, how much? Like, I guess like 30 pounds. Like, so it ends up being a lot. You become that, and working out is the same way. Like, everything needs to be reinforced by the previous day and the following day. Like, everything is connected. We've gone through this before on a number of podcasts, and that you should leave workouts feeling well. You shouldn't feel destroyed. You shouldn't feel like you have to meet these like grandiose expectations every day. You should feel energized by the accomplishment of just getting it done. Should some workouts be harder than others? Absolutely. But for the majority of the time, they shouldn't be that hard. Like, they should be, I don't want to say easy. They should be, as I like to say, appropriately challenging. That is the greatest compliment a coach can get. That workout, coach, was appropriately challenging. Or that was just what I needed. Or I feel so much better after that. Or that active recovery ride was perfectly timed. Like, that's exactly what you should feel, because the psychological, emotional, and physical change that can happen with an athlete if you ask them to do something very, very, very hard again, when what they needed and wanted and were supposed to have was something easy, and they go into that thinking, I can't do this, this is going to hurt, this is going to be way too much, and then they go through it and they feel like a failure, or they overextend themselves and overtrain, the effects are detrimental. It could be a 2 or 3 day takeaway in terms of like needing to take 2 or 3 days off of total rest. It could be a week. It could be, and it might just not be the physical, things you've done to them in terms of, how you coach and like overtraining them. The psychological toll, when really so many people right now, all they need are wins right now. And the easiest win to have is just getting up and just getting your 35-minute run done. There are no insane expectations. There are no, repeats at 8-minute miles that I'm expecting you to hit today. Well, what if you slept like crap? And what if your kids are up all night? And what if you're super stressed about what's going on in the world? Now you have this 8-minute random pace that your coach put in that you've got to hit today, and you think, I can't hit that. What does that do? Is that doing anything positive? Well, you just got to suck it up, man. You just got to really go with it, and you just got to grit it out and beat yesterday. Or you could just be like, you know what? I'm going to just kind of take today easy, because that's what I need. Not just physically, but that's what my mind needs today. And athletes, I think it's important and imperative for athletes to understand that you own your own body. The coach doesn't. They can program things, and like that. It's not a dictatorship. Like, it's a relationship. And you should see it, and you feel like, you know what? And I support this 100%, and I try to reaffirm this when athletes make these decisions on their own. They're like, Coach, I know you had this longer today, but I mentally I was fried, so I cut a little bit short, and I feel like it was the best decision. Bravo. Standing ovation like that. You know your body better than anyone, and I think that's also one of the hardest parts for athletes to do these days, is to get to know their body really well. But that is the most empowering thing you can do, is to have your athletes know that those decisions are ultimately up to them, that they should never feel forced to do it. They should feel supported in doing it. They should want to do it. And hopefully the goal and the outcome is for them to feel better having done it. But life isn't perfect. Training isn't perfect. Coaching isn't perfect. Like we have stresses, we have, stressors, we have obstacles, we have things that happen. We have, we suffer losses. We go through hard times. We also go through exhilarating things and job changes that are outstanding, but those are all still stress. Like, there's still hard things. Life is ever changing, and you are the only person that knows when you wake up, how do I feel today? What's best for me? Coaches should generally have an idea of what they believe is best if you wake up on a normal day, but only you know what you feel like when you wake up. It's just having that guide, but ultimately you said, like, you need to reinforce something positive every day, which is like, I can do it. I'm doing something positive for myself. I'm making myself healthier. Because in the long run, like, that's really all we're going to be left with. When you're, I'm 40, when I'm 45, 50, 55, like, I want to be able to, like, feel awesome. I don't want to, look and feel like many of the, 40, 45, 50-year-old, people that I see that I'm like, I want to be able to hang. Like, when I was outside playing basketball with Hayden, I was like, first of all, he's getting massive, and he is like the most gigantic kid ever. I don't know where he gets it from, but I'm like, if I need to hang with him, I gotta keep my butt in shape. Maybe that's what it was. I was like, he's gonna be running me over in like 4 years on the basketball court or somewhere else. If I don't just keep my act together and like stay in shape, he's gonna do some damage to me. But it's just like, it's those little things that sometimes I think we forget about when we have these. We're so goal oriented, which I think is great, but it's all around a race date or the completion of an event. But the greatest gift that this sport gives you is hopefully is longevity in life and being healthy, which leads to happiness, which is great for you mentally, emotionally, and those are all the things that I think oftentimes we forget, that we just are happy that comes with it, but we forget that those are the things that we're ultimately left with, which are the biggest positive. It's not going to be your medals that you're, it's like when you got grandkids, you're like, but come back and look in my attic and look at these finisher medals and bibs that I have. They're going to be like, I don't even know what sport that is. Like, but what they're going to want though is a grandpa that can run around, and play basketball with them or be active and do those things. And that's what the sport can give you if you do it the right way.
Mm. We've talked about many times the idea that working out and exercise should give you energy, not take it away. And I really feel like that might be my zone, if anything else, right now, because I am not shelled when I'm working out right now. And I love what you said when athletes will say, hey, I just didn't have it or whatever. It's like that. And I have been adjusting. I've been kind of like, it's sort of like what Cody Beals said, right? And he said he kind of wakes up and judges the day, and then he decides what's going down that day. And I don't know if that's always like the perfect way to always do it. But I think in general, at least right now, my phase is right now is like getting myself in shape so I can be in shape to train like I need to or whatever. But we talk about that too. And, we are what we expose ourselves to. And how you said it, it's like, it's so great. You can kind of see, like when I saw you in a groove before Texas, you could just see it in your eye. You could feel it in your step. You could sense the clarity of that mission and how, normal things on a daily basis that would tend to bother you or someone just were kind of like bouncing off. It's just sort of like you're embracing your own truth consistently in that phase. And I think to me that's another great goal is just sort of how do you embrace what's good for you, what you know is good. And you were joking about it before the podcast, but I told you I gave up cable again. You're like, no, you didn't. I said, well, my card expired on YouTube TV, so I didn't feel like going through and resetting everything up, and it just wouldn't let me watch. And last night was like the 5th time this season that I forgot the Badgers basketball team was actually playing. And I heard about it about halftime, and they were winning, so I'm like, all right, I'm going to turn this on. And then I couldn't get there. And then I told you what I did. I just turned on the Fireplace channel on YouTube and listened to the classical music. And I got to say, man, like we are both big sports fans. We always have been. But I know, and maybe it's got a combination of, that UT's been going through some struggles in football and things like that. Maybe you've just lost some. And I can see how that would lose some zest for you in general. But the way you approach getting invested in college football and basketball or whatever has changed over the last 4 or 5 years, 3 years, 4 years.
It's changed.
Like the way we used to look at that, it was like a guidance pattern of our lives.
Yeah.
And now it's just sort of, I've lost it a lot slower than you, but now going through this type of season with no fans and all that kind of thing, it's just kind of like, all right, dude, I'm out a little bit, and it's fading.
I definitely.
And I think it's a good thing.
No, I think I know. I agree with you. I think. Do you really feel though like you gave up cable, or do you feel like that'd be the
I'll tell you why. The answer is yes, because the only thing I kept cable for was Badgers.
Basketball. Yeah. Okay.
I wasn't watching anything else. I was all on the YouTube stuff, and even that now, it's like I have this new saying, right? That you grow up, and everybody says, "Don't believe everything you read." And now my new mantra is, "Don't believe anything you read."
No, seriously,
so it's like
it's so discouraging, though.
That's what happened with the YouTube. It's like I don't even know what to watch on there. Honestly, the only thing I watch on there is clips of Impractical Jokers.
I mean, I feel like that's fair.
I mean, it makes me feel good. It makes me laugh, and then I don't watch it all night. I just watch a few, and then I'm out.
Laughter is medicine, man. I'm telling you, like that's
something
amazing. I know. I reference this a few podcasts, and then I want to talk about moving goalposts, which isn't referring to college football, but that has been my latest probably non-traditional parenting technique. Is anytime when Hayden would he's 4, even though he looks like he's 19. He, it's a typical toddler, and he'll go through his meltdowns and being defiant and whatever. And I used to my response has always been kind of very firm but loving and like you need to do this, why but now what I do is I just walk up to him and he has this spot underneath his neck where I'll tickle him. And now if he does anything he starts to whine or be defiant, I just walk up to him and I just jab my finger right on his tickle spot and he just starts busting out laughing, and literally it's over and done. There is no more meltdown. There is no more trying to argue with you. It's just we're we're just having a good time. And it has changed the amount of meltdowns he's had or arguments that we've had as toddler and parent. It's they're not gone, but they've dropped by over half. They're just it's been really nice. But the more I thought about it, I was every time we laugh, it's like everything else just kind of goes away. Everything else in life is better. And but going back to like the goal,
physical release, man.
It is. It really is. It's like it's an emotional release, and more people need more of. And that's like, people need laughter. People need, connection with other people. It's something that's unfortunately like gone by the wayside lately. But one of the things that you talked about in terms of like, when I felt like I was in the zone for Texas and everything was kind of, I was dealing with things better and life was great or whatever. And I think what happens is we tend to feel like we need these specific goalposts in life in terms of goals, right? In terms of like, everyone has this, everyone's trying to lose weight right now. Everyone's trying to revamp their life. Everyone's trying to, get back in shape. Everyone's trying to, this, and I have to have this goalpost here that has to be this. And then if it's not that, then what is it? But I think what we have to be really understanding of ourselves is that it's okay to be flexible. It's okay for those goalposts to move. It doesn't have to be a race. It doesn't have to be an event. It can just be, maybe I just kind of want to lose weight. Maybe I kind of want to get back in shape. Maybe I just kind of, want to feel good. Maybe I just want to be ready if I want to do something. Maybe I want to be ready for 2022 because I'm not really sure how I feel about this year. Those are all okay. And I think athletes have I get this question sometimes as a coach, which I find fascinating and also kind of sad based on like most athletes' experiences with other coaches. I'm like I really don't know if I want to train for a race right now. Is that okay? Yeah, it's pretty much fine. Like, it's your life. Like, you do whatever you want to do. Or it's like, I really don't want to do, triathlon this year. I think I just want to run. Is that cool? Yeah. This is your life. You do whatever the hell you want to do with it. It's my job to support you, right? In doing it. Like, I 100% support that. I will do my best to help you get out of your own way if I feel like you're going to make a negative or detrimental choice to your overall health. Yes, that's where I step in and not draw the line, but I want to kind of, veer in a different direction. But it is your life. Like, you do what you feel like is best. And I feel like we always kind of, and again, this is how we've become a society. We have become addicted to affiliation. We have to be this specific political, supporter. We have to be this specific religious. We have to be, I feel like we have to be this specific diet. We have to be this. That's like become who we are. It's like everyone's bio. I am a vegan, Republican, fighter for this. I'm like, that's everyone feels like they have to be affiliated with something to be their identity. When the fact is that like, we change a lot. What is important to us changes all the time based on, going back to like your college football analogy, or not analogy, but I haven't given up on it. It just has it has fallen down. And maybe that's not even like the way to put it. Like, my love of sports in general was always gonna be there, but like, I still love it, but there have been, if you look at it as in like, where it stands on like a list of like the top 20 things in my life, I haven't moved it down purposefully. I've just had other things that I've moved up to the top that have now become way more important. Like, the hub, our business, training more athletes, traveling to races, my son, these are all things that are like off the top of my list that have just made it fall further down, which is 100% okay, right? We all go through these things in life, these periods where like some things are more important than others. And that is okay. It's like we like to judge ourselves like, oh, well, I haven't always felt like that. I haven't always been like that. Or, okay, well, that's perfectly fine. Like, are you happy with who and where you are right now? Yes. Okay, then next question. Like, Why do we have to keep, comparing ourselves again? Because we love it, that we love to compare ourselves to the past version of our athlete. I mean, I think we all do that. And that's, I think, why I was kind of enjoying like the Texas process for me, because I was like, man, I've been in the sport for like 2 years. I haven't ridden my bike in like over a year and a half, but I feel like I'm kind of getting it back. And it was really encouraging to me to kind of to be back in kind of the, the saddle, if you will, and feel that again. But when I tried to get back into it, I think it was also an emotional thing, an attachment for the race date that I had. I think it was just kind of a perfect storm for me in terms of being emotionally and mentally and physically invested in an event and a race and a time. But then it went away, but I was also kind of like, man, but you feel compelled to like have to keep doing it but it was going so well. Like, why did you step, I mean, I don't know, but I'm still kind of happy, which isn't that like the whole point of it? Is to just kind of be happy in life. And I don't know what I'm trying to say right there, but it's like, I think we should be okay with moving goalposts and moving objectives and like what we really want in life, and that's okay. And that and I think we've talked about this on a couple other podcasts before. It's like, we're always kind of late to our own party, right? We change as people and what's important to us in life, but we're still kind of obsessed with and infatuated with what we used to do, when we kind of like forget that it just might not be as important as it used to be, but we're just not used to it not being as important, right? It's like your thing with basketball. It's like, I didn't even know the basketball game was on until somebody told me, and you're like, oh, well, I think I should probably watch because they're winning. And like, this is me. I'm Mike. I love the Badgers. Like, all right, I can't log on. All right, Fireplace Channel. It's kind of a reminder of how it's fallen down your list, and that's something that I think we need to be okay with, it being flexible, and how our life changes, and that where triathlon or where running and swimming and cycling fall on your list. Like, you don't have to marry yourself to just being this one thing. That's why I love trying to really get the point across for athletes. Like, we don't coach triathletes, we just coach athletes in general, and it just so happens that most of them love doing triathlon. Some of them just love running, and some just love cycling, some of them just love swimming. It's okay to just love whatever the hell you want to love.
Yeah. No, I love how you explained that about the goalposts, and how football sort of just started moving down because other things started taking precedent or whatever. And it's almost like a subtle creep. Like I went, many, many times I've told you I'm done. I'm just shutting it off. It's sort of like this willpower-y thing where I'm going to go, I'm not a football guy anymore. I'm not going to watch any of it. But that was like false, it was a false flag.
You wanted that. You just weren't ready to do it.
Right. I was trying to force it and everything like that. And it's been that, I think to me, the biggest discovery is the fact that I've actually started forgetting about the games, when in maybe like the last 10 years, I haven't missed one. And now all of a sudden it's sort of like, oh, well, the circumstances have created this and that and this and that. And, for example, I think that's what we do a lot, is we just set these goals. And I think I've compared it to, I think it's more important to set intention, because a goal, like for example, when I set my first goal to do Ironman Wisconsin, you were my coach that first year. It was a good thing. It was moving the right direction, but I put way, way, way too much emphasis on a goal, because after that race, guess what happened? Nothing was different, not much was different. I was just, in better shape, but I didn't necessarily feel better and all that kind of stuff. So that was a big wake up call for me. And now again, with my race in Chattanooga, while it's out there, I have to go back to my goal is to feel good, because I think that takes care of it, right? Like if I train for this whole year, and I think I already know, like intrinsically, that if I keep this perspective going, I have a very good chance of racing well. Whereas I can, fret and stress about everything or what have you along the way, and be like, oh man, I got to get in a 6-hour ride. I got to do this before the race. Like that's going to solve the problem. It's more about just building this momentum toward the day, feeling good along the way, and feeling as strong as you possibly can, and being able to understand that you need to race it within your ability, and until you get to the end, and just let it rip. It's a slow process that's percolating right now, and I enjoy that feeling.
You bring up like a really, really great point there, and I think you hit it with like the college football or college sports thing. Is like, so many times in life we feel like we shouldn't love something or want something, or we shouldn't do something because like I just everyone else is not doing it. Like I shouldn't do it either. Or wouldn't it be better for me if I just didn't? And then you try it and you can't do it, and you're like, God, like why can't I do this? Like we try so hard sometimes to force ourselves into doing something or not doing something that we just feel, for whatever reason, just compelled to do or not do for whatever. Like but it's not. The reason we don't end up doing it is because we don't have this real, true conviction behind it, and then we end up not doing it. It's like, well, I signed up for this race. Why can't I just get my act together? You know, like everyone else is doing it. Why can't I? And you're like, well, maybe it's because you're trying to be someone that you're not ready to be, right? And that's actually okay. Like, yes, do we all need to make improvements? Should we all be stagnant and stale and not trying to grow? No, but at the same point, it's like the acknowledgement and awareness of knowing when you're ready is an invaluable trait, right? Because if you feel like I just feel like I have to be ready. So you set yourself up for failure by setting up for too many races, and you're scheduling your own training plan. You're like, I got to do 15 hours this week. I am ready. Are you? Because from what I know as a coach, like it never happens that way.
Right.
I can tell you from 15 years of experience, very seldom has an athlete been like, Coach, I'm ready. Let's do it. Like, load me up. I'm like, really? Load you up? Because I don't see that I can load you up right now. Like, what makes you think? And it's not being Debbie Downer or being, you know, I think just that, you know, weird coach. It's just like, hey, like, why don't you, like I had an email the other day after our swimming podcast. Coach, you get me fired up, baby. Let's do this. Let's really just like bring it to me. Just swims. My first thing was like, dude, I'm really glad it resonated with you, but can I ask you a question? Like, do you have time for that? And it's not to like make them unexcited or be Debbie Downer. It's just like, I don't want to set expectations that are unrealistic, not for me, but for you, because not being able to do things is discouraging. It makes you feel bad. It makes you frustrated. Like, we should know, so like I'm saying, like, I've rarely had like, I'm ready to go, coach. Let's just do it. And I'm like, okay. And then and sometimes back in my mind, I'm like, we'll see how long this lasts, because you can't speak it into existence. It just has to happen. Things in your life have to happen. It's either you have to have it's not even just having a why. It's like things just have to come together, and just one day it just feels right to give up college football or basketball. It wasn't like some forced, I'm going to make this decision today, I'm going to make it happen. It just kind of happens. But we live in this world where we feel like everything has to be on demand and explainable, when the reality is like, just go with it, baby. Like, if it happens, it doesn't. Keep moving in the right direction, keep trying to progress, and keep, be healthy and make positive decisions, and, things are going to be good for you. But don't stop trying to just force everything because you think it's what's expected in society. It's, I've got to do this. I have to do this now. Everyone else is doing it. And then you're like, well, why can't I? Everyone else is doing it. Maybe that's not what you're meant to do right now. Like, maybe that's not, like, it's just not meant to go that way. And I think you have to understand that. And then, but also you have to, I think, you have to see the warning signs of, why isn't this working for me? But you also have to see the positive signs of, oh, this is happening. And then just hold on for dear life and enjoy the ride. Yeah.
And let that go. Let it happen, because it is sort of these, I guess baby steps in the right direction. We have this thing about, a lot of times we know what we're about to do isn't the best thing for us. And for whatever reason, often we'll take that step. Whether, like I was saying, a lot of times for me, it might be gouging on food or something like that, or, I don't know, but just like the ability to differentiate between what you think is good truthfully in your soul for you versus what isn't, but like sort of just, grabbing more out of the good for you bag slowly, and then it just starts taking over with a natural sort of or organic movement, that things become easier. And that's a big part too, is like, okay, what, like for example, one of the things I do, and I've talked about it many times, is like when I feel, you feel down with energy, what's the first thing you think of usually? Is like a sugary, like some kind of an energy,
a quick fix.
And I've talked about this many, many times. It's like, I believe in my heart that the right thing to do in that moment is drink a glass of water, just hydrate.
The opposite.
Yeah. And maybe two. And I've been doing that more often, and it quells. It's amazing how it quells. Or if like, even if you just take a deep breath or two, or like kind of like that kind of thing, you can kind of talk yourself out of or at least get yourself out of that like impulse space. If you just take a minute and go, do I really need this? And I know that sometimes that gets easier. And like now it feels easier for me. It's like that, I'll just grab some water and be like, oh man, I feel a little flat or something's a little bit. Just drink a couple glass of water. Bam. And then the next thing you know, you're not thinking about it or obsessed with it. And you just sort of move a little bit further in the right direction.
It all comes down to decision making, right? Because if you had chosen, well, I'm kind of hungry, I'm kind of feeling out of it.
But sometimes
how about a Coke and a Snickers? And then if that was at lunchtime later on that day, your next decision is like, I already had a Coke and Snickers day. What's a pizza? Which isn't necessarily wrong, right? It's not that you're doing something wrong, but it is the more you make that decision, the harder it is to not make that decision. But the more times you make the water choice, it now becomes the standard. It now becomes, something you do frequently, which also makes, the occasional Coke and Snickers or whatever, just whatever, kind of not bad. But it's all about, what decisions are you making that are going to ultimately override, the times where we just, we either don't make good decisions or we're like, but I'm actually like okay with this decision of like having pizza today. Which also I think is a great feeling to have because you don't feel restricted and like it's a bad choice. You just think I may really make a lot of good choices and I work out a lot and whatever, I want pizza today, so let's have pizza. Like there's literally nothing wrong with it. But it's about like the pattern of decisions that you make and the behaviors and habits that you have. If you do a really good job of that 80, 85, 90% of the time, then yeah, whatever, pizza, Snickers, whatever, no big deal. But if it's the opposite and the pizza, Snickers, Coke is the 80% of your behavior and habits, then that's a totally different story, right? And so I think there's a lot of freedom in having that and that ability of knowing who you are and what you need. But I think it all comes down to small decisions, getting up early, getting your workout done, having water instead of a Snickers or a Coke, or, waiting for a minute because we all have these like impulse, like I feel this way and then I need to fix it right now. I need to, what's the quickest fix I can do? Or, I didn't work out this morning, so I can't work out today. Can you? Not really. You don't have time. Yeah. We make those decisions, because we feel like everything has to be made immediately because that's the world we live in. Everything happens. We feel like in real time that we can't make, adjustment. I had this conversation yesterday with the athlete. It was like, I missed my workout yesterday because of something, and today's gonna be really tough. I feel like the week's getting away from me. But we're just on Wednesday. We still got more of the week left than not. So there's still a lot to be accomplished and a lot to, salvage, if you will, by just waking up the next day and being like, all right, let's get back to work. Like we don't have to make a decision on the week, the month, or the year today. We just have to figure out along the way by doing the best we can each and every day.
I agree. I was just going to quickly add, that the water thing versus sugar. And I know that the biggest win I can have, it's happened a couple times. Like maybe it's an afternoon lull or like a early evening lull or something. Instead of, I'll do that, but I'll also be like, what I really need is like a short 15 minutes on the treadmill. And that is such a winner, man. It's unbelievable that who cares? I mean, most people wouldn't even want to put it in Training Peaks, but it's so powerful. It's like a game changer in the day. And it's like, it doesn't wear you down. It brings you kind of turns around the chemistry or something, and wow, what a winner.
What a winner, baby. We hope this podcast was a winner.
Well,
You'll let us know.
We enjoyed it. So
yeah, we enjoyed it, probably. Which is, probably it's all that matters. Which probably means like 2 stars coming.
2 stars.
As always, we appreciate you. If you're racing this weekend, have a great race. Do something. Enjoy yourself. Be happy. Be healthy. Keep up the training. Do something that makes you feel good. If you haven't been or you want to go, hop onto our website, C26Triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. It also has our ongoing club membership where we plan your entire year around your schedule and where your races. You can click on the coaching tab, drop down 3 to the club membership, click on that. All the info you need is there. Mike's in charge of that. He's also taking on athletes right now for custom coaching. We just had a tremendous response to, so if you're thinking about it, you better grab a hold of him now while he lasts. Also, we just got in some new hats. We have hats and visors. Those are on the far right gear tab. You can click on there and order those. Those are going fast as well, so hop in there. It's a great way to support our community and also the podcast in general, so we don't start having avocado mattress and health insurance sponsors pop in.
Yeah, that's it right there.
Just do it, baby.
Our sponsor is us.
Our sponsor is us and you.
And you.
Yeah, you most importantly. If you have any questions or comments for Mike, he is at crushingiron@gmail.com. If you have any questions or comments for me, I am always at C26Coach.
That sums it up for me, buddy.
That's it, man. We'll see you Monday.
All right, man.